Noi cominciamo, se magari qualcuno deve bersi il caffè conclusivo, noi partiamo lo stesso. Un ringraziamento, io sono Franco Del Campo, sono stato incaricato in modo immeritato di essere qua a condurre questa fase finale di questo convegno così importante. Io sono il meno competente a fare queste cose, però quindi sono qui soltanto soprattutto per imparare. Siamo molto in ritardo, quindi la soluzione più corretta sarebbe quella che io facessi soltanto l'appello, ci salutiamo e ci vediamo il prossimo anno. Però credo che invece dovremo sentire, e credo giustamente e correttamente, i nostri
need
relatori
to
conclusivi.
listen to our final speakers who will be very brief. So there will be a summary of the work they did in the past couple of days. So I just wanted to thank Diego Brava, that everybody thanked him, but I think I am the one who have known him for the longest of all the people in attendance. So I just wanted to appreciate his job, his commitment, his dedication that has achieved amazing results for this city, that unfortunately acknowledges that only a few times. I think it should need more recognition by the city. So I'm asking you to be brief.
Prima Franco, non so se vuole prima Brava. Bene, come
So
coordinato.
the floor
Prima
goes
Franco
to
Coren,
Franco
il
Coren,
direttore dell'OGS.
the director of OGS. Thank you so much. I'll try to be extremely brief. It was a good experience for me to understand what is being done, like many different sectors, the importance of synergy and working together is extremely important. OGS is a state-run body. We'll try to make our best, to do our best to make the best effort. So I don't have anything to add. I've been extremely brief. I'll stop here.
Però di quello che avete parlato, se no diamo la parola a Bravar che
So I would like to give the floor to Bravar, who will summarize everything. So thank you, Franco. Thank you, Franco. And Franco. We met when we were little kids. We were both swimmers, but he went to the Olympic Games afterwards. I didn't. The other Franco, I met him during these activities that we carried out today and these couple of days, and I publicly appreciated his humbleness that translates into let him speak. But I really wanted to hear his words because OGS won a tender from the recovery plan, and OGS ranked third out of 24 for funding amounting to 20 million euros. And the tender is to upgrade the technological infrastructure in an industrial area, an abandoned industrial area of the city of Trieste. This is the first point. The project is called Tritium, Trieste Valley Innovation Hub. And why do we need another innovation hub, or the Friuli Venezia Giulia needs one? The reason is that we have 10,000 researchers in the cities. Only 1% of these researchers have created a startup. And if we were in a country like Germany or France, certain regions of those countries, we would have had 1,000 startups. And although we only did 100, we only had 100 and 200 if we consider the entire region, we are still considered by Europe as the most innovative region in Italy. So the rest of Italy is highlighted in yellow. We are green, and even the western regions are still yellow. So there is still much to do. Why do we need an innovation hub? Because if we manage to have 2,000 startups in the region or in the city, we would need 15 square meters per head for 3,000 people, because each startup employs 3 people. So we need to increase the space that we have, the space in the urban center, in area, and in BIC. Basically, this is what OGS will do, but it has emerged here. It will do that with the support of SISA, with the support of the universities of Trieste and Udine, and with the support of another body, UN body, which is ECGB, and another UN body, which is ECTP. One deals with biotechnologies, and the other deals with physics. And with the support of Elettra Synchrotron, I think this declaration of support is extremely important for OGS. OGS is not alone, it will not be alone, but it will have this support. In addition, we had a member of the Feder Manager Steering Committee who told us that we are available to help if you need temporary managers. Then we had the president of the scientific committee of Confindustria at the national level, and he also said we are here to support you. We are available. And for Confindustria at the national level, it is very important to have labs in the country. And if Trieste and the entire region don't perform well versus other European region, we are still the best in Italy, and we have the duty to help the other Italian regions. This doesn't mean that we want more money. We already have the money. We need to exploit it in the best possible way. And then there was an expected person. I wouldn't expect it, who accepted the president of the University of Trento, who's also the president of the foundation, Liver Research Foundation at the national level. He told us that there are thousands of people doing volunteering for innovation in healthcare, and they told us that they put a lot of money that are collected straight from the public, the members of the public. So you want to be alone as OGS, this is the message I wanted to give you. You will have to find a partner at the European level, but you won't be alone. This is what emerged in this first session. I wanted to add something. There is another aspect. There are strengths and weaknesses, like in all projects. In this case, I'll start again. I wanted to say that the project, as it is an hub, not only for spaces, but also because the teams change in research. So here we dealt with the biotech part, but we also put the energy part in the incubator, and computing. And these 3 elements within the hub will have to be balanced. And this will be another challenge because basically instead of focusing on one point, we've opened up to all the issues. And overall, that is a very large, very big challenge. And they will do it, or we will do it as a city with shared labs for all the companies in the territory and for the research centers that will want to use this 7.5 million of equipment. It will be shared in BioHighTech equipment. Many companies that came here already told us we did this announcement because we don't want to waste that money. The equipment that are already available at ICGB, at CISA, we're not talking about that. It's new equipment that may be used by researchers as well as companies. And the project starts on the 1st of October and must be closed in 36 months, as all the National Recovery Plan. This was the summary of...
I'll now
leave the floor to Milos Jecevic and Francesco Merengoni.
Professor Milos Jecevic è docente al Dipartimento di Ingegneria
Professor Milos
dell'Università
Jecevic
di
is
Trieste.
professor at the Department of Engineering and Architecture of the University of Trieste. Good evening, everybody. In these 2 days, in these 2 days of conference, we've listened to important updates on research and innovation projects carried out by regional and non-regional companies in the biomedical fields, ranging from innovative technologies for oncological therapies to innovative technologies in regenerative therapies and success stories in the field of process automation and companies carrying on projects with in vitro diagnostic with innovative kits, but also in the field of electronics and biomedical devices. We've listened to news about innovative projects in surgical and non-surgical areas, reaching different thematics as cognitive training supported by digital technologies. We've seen that the enterprises working in the field operate in synergy within the BioHighTech network, where they have both national and international contacts, and they work in synergy with national and international research institutions. I'll leave the floor to Francesco now. Thank you, Milos. Quite briefly, I would like to underline 3 transversal concepts that emerged during the session we chaired yesterday. Some of them are quite obvious, so to say. One is about research. Many companies that presented their project yesterday, shown as Interreg projects or projects of the like, for example, enable them to make larger projects thanks to the National Recovery and Resilience Plan. Just think of Biosec. Research projects and research collaborations shared by different companies, Halifax with international collaborations, smaller agencies already look with interest to the NRRP. Another aspect that crossed all the companies we listened to yesterday was digitalization. Digitalization that we take for granted in some fields, but We saw yesterday as medical device producers today can often provide middleware software to link and connect all devices to acquire data sets and to give more value, added value to the end consumer, to the end user. We saw that digitalization and advanced artificial intelligence technique enable people to do diagnostics with chip to collaborate with the CISA for AI algorithms to improve the device performances. One last aspect that emerged from yesterday's presentations, which is probably less obvious, is that the innovations presented within research projects have not only improved the quality of the device or of the product, but also improved costs and the time needed. Many presented solutions, diagnostic solutions, going from self-sampling to the protocol, to the assay, thus decreasing the time and the costs needed for analysis. Sviligoy, for example, talked to us about GMP in a box, a very simple environment that enables us to standardize research projects to curb costs and time, or lab on chips, or micro-invasive lasers. This means that collaboration with research and innovation not only help improve the results, but also help optimizing quality in terms of time and costs to offer services that can be reached by a wider audience as possible, because the cost can also be a limit, a budget limit. So the lower the cost, the wider the audience. Quite clear and quite important, I'd say. Now the floor goes to Maurizio Fermeglia and Alberto Steindler. Don't take the long.
The floor goes to Fermeglia. So good afternoon. We talked about education. We tried to understand how the training system, education system, and the guidelines of the education system has on the subjects dealt with in these days. And we understood that there's a convergence and a multidisciplinarity of technologies. This has appeared in many speeches. In a particular focus was given to the role of the educational system within the educational system of big data and artificial intelligence and everything that is connected to ICT. There have been a few speeches in various education sector players. A few serious issues were highlighted. First and foremost, cybersecurity as well as privacy, which is widely underestimated. However, it is one of the pillars of the recovery plan, because we are talking about doing things in a safe way, and there are still many gaps. And then it has emerged that the equipment producers are not very sensitive to such issues like cybersecurity and data privacy. The University of Trieste talked about the current situation of biomedical engineering at the university and biotechnology, and it demonstrated that master's degree thesis works led quite quickly to the creation of spin-offs and startups with products that are mature, ready for market. And even in this case, there was a focus on ICT subjects, and but we need more on that. We also heard about the situation in the neighboring Croatia, in particular the University of Zagreb, and they highlighted the situation of new normalcy that we are living after COVID. this is something that appears everywhere, even in the educational system that went through a tsunami, and now we need to make up for the lost time. Luckily, in the biomedical sector and clinical engineering, there are market prospects. I'm talking about employment market that are very, very interesting in Croatia as well as in other Balkan countries. Then with Czerny, we saw the common thread between high school and university, and I'm talking about ITS, which is in a good situation as it has a very high rate of students who immediately find a job at the end of their education path. And it is extremely interesting. And then I'll conclude and give the floor to Alberto next to me. But with the National Recovery Plan funding, there will be a renewal, an upgrading of all the equipment within all the hospitals and healthcare facilities. What will be missing is the specialists working with that equipment. Yes, you are right. We saw the point of view of those who have to implement those projects within hospitals and hospital facilities. So we had this instant allocation of funding that requires very complex, the implementation of complex, very complex projects in a very short time, and the companies don't have enough technicians able to manage those complex projects with such multidisciplinarity. So one of the challenges is to provide those skills that are cross-sector. And then Professor Marceglia provided the example of two degree theses that became products, real-life products, and one of them was presented today. So we would like to increase this connection between universities and companies so as to transform ideas into products as they usually come from young people. Croatia also was very much focused on the international vision, because it is not possible to limit your work to your backyard. You need to have an international vision, and the current international situation requires us to look at the bigger picture. Lastly, there's a fundamental request to fill the gap between the needs of enterprises and the education of technicians. According to statistics in the biotech world, 50% of the posts that are offered by the companies are not covered because it's impossible to find young people with specific skills. In the case of ITS, it was in the framework of the National Recovery Plan, an investment of 1.5 billion euro was announced. We still don't know how that money will be used, but we hope that there will be the chance to build infrastructure able to accelerate filling the gap between competencies and jobs that are offered. Thank you so much.
Bravissimi tutti quanti per il momento.
Thank you. Ronnie Andrews and Alessandro Marcello. Good evening. I feel like an imposter because it wasn't me to organize the panel, but my colleague Natasha Skoko couldn't be here. I'm here as a representative of ICGB. It is very important to participate in these events for us because we are an international body with projects and similarities with the university, but we're not university. We do research, but we're not university. We do teaching, training, but we're not university. We do projects, but we're not a company. This year we had energy, besides biotech, so I would like to start from here. We've introduced new topics, new local situations. We talked about biogas, we talked about drones, we talked about drone logistics, hospital drone logistics, all very interesting subject matters which can be quite far away from the local reality, but that will for sure stimulate interactions with this world to develop innovations and products. Then we had the biotech part linked to the healthcare. We have local players that are already important and are already growing. For example, Halifax, which invested on protein labs, or SICK, which developed products for saliva diagnostics. We already have local companies that are investing in creating products, so we need to keep on along this path by increasing interactions between the private and the public sector and public institutions. I will now leave the floor to my colleague. I haven't cited his speech. Well, of course, we have an expert in genetics linked to GN Life. He showed us some examples of personalized genetics and the importance of genetic data for human health. Thank you.
Bene.
Sorry about that. Yeah, thank you, Alessandro.
That's my problem.
I was very honored to be here. Thank you Diego for the invitation. Having lived in the early days of biotech centers in the U.S. of San Diego, Cambridge, Massachusetts, Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina, which we now call Research Triangle Park, and now Nashville, Tennessee is the emerging one. I was very impressed with the variety of thinking that was coming out of Trieste and in this area. Also very impressed that there were major themes that, despite the last 4 years or 3.5 years that we've been living through a crazy time of a pandemic, there were good things in science that came out of that, and these themes were highlighted yesterday in our session. One is the importance of international cooperation in medicine. We all suffer from the same disease areas typically, and the complexity of diseases are not unique to one country. They're across all countries, and that was a main theme yesterday. Second is that in the battle against SARS-CoV-2, there was increased investment in what we call democratized capabilities, kits that could be sent to rural areas and be able to provide rapid diagnostics. And that was very important for us to help overcome the pandemic. The third, which was very interesting for me, was the utility of sampling like saliva, which is very important as we think about improving cost of diagnostics and improving access of diagnostics. And then the final concept that came out that I think we've known for a long time in the U.S., but unfortunately we are blinded by big pharma, and that is the need for lower cost therapeutics around the world, and that biosimilars are going to make a comeback and are very important to the future of global healthcare, especially in the areas of virology, but also certainly in the areas of cancer. One of the things I highlighted yesterday, and it's an important thing to know, the third generation of chemotherapies and immune therapies in the United States, they're good drugs. They're very expensive drugs. They only incrementally improve a patient outcome a little bit. maybe by 2 or 3 months, not years. And so taking drugs that are off patent and creating biosimilars at much lower cost and delivering those through new mechanisms will allow us to serve global populations with drugs that will still help them, and they'll help them at a much lower cost until the current new drugs get off a patent and allow us to bring another generation of important therapies to market. So again, thank you for the invitation. I was very impressed with the science that's being practiced in Trieste, and already made some connections for some things we might do in the US, especially in the area of consumer health. It's a big area of investment in the United States, and understanding a person's genome and how that relates to wellness is a growing market in the US, and now I understand a growing market here in Italy, and I think one that is really good to put some money behind. People need to be more aware of their own wellness and not wait till they get sick, and that's an important theme for us. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Grazie a tutti e due.
Thank you both.
Allora siete bravissimi.
You're really, really good. You're being terrific. We've almost to make up for the time we lost, and we hope to do so, but there's somebody who couldn't be here, Andrea Tracogna, but we have Alessandra Ramani. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody, once again. This morning, I had the opportunity to take part in the panel dedicated to finance, a panel in which different players engaged in a dialogue. They are already in contact with innovating enterprises and companies. I'll try to give you a brief overview of this morning's panel. All the players were agreed on the importance that innovation may have in these 2 years of uncertainty and the benefits that came from innovation. We realize that innovation is a strong element to master uncertainty and overcome uncertainty. Great attention on the part of investors who are quite interested in 2 different aspects. The first one is to facilitate the innovation within companies. This because innovation helps increase efficiency and helps increase the creation of value to the advantage of the whole community. And also be effective in seizing the opportunities that arise from startups and innovative SMEs. One of the speakers, Cerruti, Italian Tech Alliance, underlined that Italy, that is a cradle for projects and innovation, still does not express itself fully when basic research needs to approach the market. Finance has understood this need, also because new startups imply the creation of new jobs and an interesting return on investment on the local area. We also agreed in identifying the points financial players ought to master or help understand to reach startups and innovative SMEs. The importance of finding an interlocutor that can help players in scouting projects. Who works in finance inevitably is not an expert in appreciating rapidly and simply what's the potential of a project.
Parlato prima nella chiusura dell'intervento che ha preceduto questo ultimo recap di giunture.
We talked about junctions. We've talked about junctions today, and finance needs to find its junction, a junction in scientific community, in players, for example, business incubators such as Bio4Dreams and big incubatori, where dialogue can be facilitated, dialogue between researchers
nell'idea di business che nasce dalla ricerca vuole investire.
and people who want to invest in the business idea arising from research. We've also mentioned life cycles and the time needed to go from research to market, so the time to market. This is another difficult aspect for finance because finance needs to understand the time needed for an idea to go to the market. This is why the importance emerged that alternative finance, and by alternative finance, we mean crowdfunding, business angels, venture capital, private equity, all the players that can accompany enterprises when they are not yet ready to go to the market, but they can support them and flank them until the moment when their business idea is mature, can bring revenues, and can approach traditional finance.
Dottor Tommaso Baldissera e il dottor
Tommaso Baldissera and Giovanni Loser made us some really fitting examples of Baldissera about crowdfunding and Giovanni Loser as the CEO of BioValley, who's experimented the efficacy of alternative finance tools, instruments. They managed to illustrate the way in which, through these channels, a company can go from a first idea to a structure that can approach the market. To conclude, finance is attentive, is fully aware of the importance that innovation, innovative startups, and innovative SMEs can bring to our territories in terms of value creation. Certainly, we need to create networks. The famous junctions we talked about today, the experiences that we've already made in the local territories, and the dialogue that we've already embarked in between the public and the private sector made us understand that these first junctions can actually create value. So the point is, let's keep on along this path. Let's create a context that can facilitate further developments in this respect. This is an aim all involved players in the innovation chain should agree upon, and they should work towards the same. Thank you.
E allora, sì, merita un applauso. Maurizio Rizzetto e Marco Nicoli, immagino. Ah, bene.
Buonasera a tutti. Allora, la nostra sessione si è occupata di ICT, in particolare di applicazioni nell'ambito della salute.
Good evening, everybody. Our panel concentrated on ICT and on healthcare applications. We had some updates from the region on the activities foreseen in the recovery plan in our region, in particular in the healthcare field. What emerged was the complexity of these initiatives, but an important factor was the need to evaluate a change, an organizational change, and to evaluate the aspect of training, that is to train players in these very important technological fields. The concept of bringing together an organizational change and innovation also emerged from other speakers. In the second presentation, we had telemedicine and telehealth care for the elderly was at the center of the presentation, and the importance to verify the need and to engage in dialogue with players was stressed. In particular, also the usability of devices and tools present in the field. Then an interesting project was presented for artificial intelligence in the diabetes world, and what emerged is that AI applications often are black boxes. In these projects, it was necessary to verify and try and find indicators leading to final conclusions, that is, going inside the AI black box. Then we saw a project in the digital pathology field, a very hands-on experience, a change in the workflow of an organization working in the field and covering a wide area. And we saw how important it was to introduce digitalization in their activity. We also talked about startups for wearables.
Portare la sanità sul territorio a casa dei pazienti e si è discusso anche qui appunto dell'importanza dell'empower del
also discussed the importance of the empowerment of the patient to understand their needs. We spoke about user experience. Again, we mentioned deep learning, and then what it has emerged is the importance of the quality of data. We know that these applications require a lot of data, but they must be standardized, they must be good quality, otherwise what you obtain is not satisfactory. We saw an experience in the world of the management of electrical systems, and we also spoke about how the National Recovery Plans is a private company, and what's the difference in the application of the recovery fund in the public sector. Then we saw again the quality of data. Then we had a speech on robotics and on the robot control in the world of patient welcome. And then we saw an experience on the high-performance computers and the need to create computing centers with high capabilities to analyze the data. And then we saw a vision on the need of this type of tools. So thank you very much. And now, for the last time, the floor goes to Alessio Verni and Nadia Dell'Ai. Good evening. I also have the imposter syndrome, but I had the chance to follow the panel chaired by the councillor, regional councillor, and so I think that the summary of the panel was extremely good, and there was also an extremely well pictured scenario of the regional policies in our territory. I believe that the councillor gave me the opportunity to talk about the investment attraction. This is what we do as an agency. Our region in 2021 moved from 2% share of the investments in Italy to 6%, to a 6% share. And we know that the GDP of our region is around 2%. And this is a sign of the reaction ability of our system, of our network. And we work to attract, specifically to attract that investment. And there is a specific attention from investors on our territory, on our region. So this is something that is now more visible from the exterior, and this has led to concrete choices in the territory. I take this opportunity to greet all the companies that are connected online, that are parts of our network. And for example, we had a delegation of our region of the BioUSA in San Diego, so we met a lot of people and I greet them here. So we talked about policies, network, critical mass, and also the need to find junctions and connections. Our delegation was comprising representatives from our scientific network. We had an interlocutor from our scientific network who could deal with the technical issues, and then we had the agency acting as an interpreter between offer and demand, and then there was the cluster, and then the scientific world that does experiments, carry out experiments, companies that look for collaboration to experiment innovations. Then we're going to have a larger delegation next year. We're already looking at the Boston event, and this means today collecting all the requests that come from the local territory. It's a long word. The rewarding data was not created yesterday, but it's a long word. One of the investments that we are working on in the past few months, have been working on the past few months, we met them just here during this event, past event. So this means that the entire system is able to put itself on the stage. And I just wanted to add something that today, to summarize and give visibility to these elements is very complex. So managing complexity and translating it in simple terms to our interlocutors is something difficult. We are trying to do that, but I think this concerns everyone. We need to look at all the phenomena from the point of view of all the interests that looks at of a subject that looks at us from the outside. So we need to see how many graduates we have in Friuli Venezia Giulia. We know that, but we need to specifically know the graduates in specific subjects within a specific range. This is something we didn't know. We need to know what skills are available within a specific range in terms of means of transport, the distance. So it's something that we need to work on. And investors are very careful on healthcare data, so we need to find a way to exploit and improve that data. One last thing is that we heard a lot of talk about the National Recovery Plan. Last year, it was just mentioned. This year is the big protagonist of our talks. So I can say that we are delving into the implementation of this recovery plan. So I listened very carefully to the part that I could attend, and the counselor gave me the mandate to mention these themes, and I'm sure that next year this event will be even more an occasion to have a session on the attraction of the investments. We need to put our network onto the stage, and we need it to attract investors. And one of the participants was amazed by the clarity of the values, of the benefits of the proposition of Friuli Venezia Giulia. We were able to build this proposition that our region offers with all the specific interlocutors that were able to provide this individual points of view for the entire picture. So we need to do that more closely, and I really hope that we continue this work in the future. So the attractiveness, quite unexpected, of Friuli Venezia Giulia at the national and international level. So the last but not least, we have Mr. Dalai, that I have always admired. So the last things that my colleague mentioned also lead to junctions, to connections. And we've just mentioned that. And if the big that you wanted to implement and enlarge becomes a subject that is expressly committed to junctions, that is a concept that they must have in their head, because this is the complexity that becomes simpler if you say it easily, but then it depends on the way you speak about things. And junctions are good for everyone. It is good for research. Doing research, you can even involve sectors that apparently are far away, but they need junctions again. So this is the innovation. This is innovation by definition. When you make a product, it's not just limited to one specific sector. It's made of all different fields. So this morning we saw finance and structured finance. But if crowdfunding to make a company growth, maybe that is a further contribution. I mean, even crowdfunding can be a useful tool if it helps to achieve the result. But finance is also made of different types of interventions. And if the company is already existing, and if you are a small company, you need a tailor-made finance. Because banks won't provide the funding for other reasons. And the same applies to education. So I will stop here, but I just wanted to say that if you conceptualize, if you make some things operational, and if you explain them in terms of junctions, that is a contribution to a functional exercise of putting together what is fragmented in real life. Because life is complicated, there are so many subjects, and each one of them specializes in something. The same is true for doctors. To have a diagnosis, you need to see 10 specialists, but then who makes the diagnosis? No one. So I don't want to bore you, but for the things that you did up to today, plus the steps forwards from BIC, this gives me the idea that this is something that needs to be explained, showcased. I'm just looking forward. Then I've got another example. The first example is the education, the learning policies. We developed a training system, constantly adding time to time, adding training channels to training channels, and the education training was improperly moved to the next stage. So students have a problem with that. So when they get to 15, 19 years, they quit, they leave, they drop schools, and then it's ridiculous that they get the top marks at the end. Everyone gets the top final marks, and then they cannot read the text. And we all know the problems with mathematics. And so the problem was moved to universities. So if you talk to lecturers, lecturers from university tell you that the students are not able to write in Italian. So this is the problem. Then is moved to the master's degree, and so we need to find the mechanism to defend ourselves. So the upper classes, their children, they do 3 master's degree. Somebody sends the children to the United States or somewhere else. There is a problem of relations, and the social differences and gaps are now clear. So in the education and the relational system of families, we need to work on that. We need to understand how to do learning. And then I just want to mention a problem that which I just touched upon. We have 9 million students, but we have 28 million adults that are unemployed or potentially in the labor market that will have to be recycled somehow. We need 22 million teachers. If we want all of them to study, that is not possible. We need to find a way to implement a different type of training. And I think that startups will need that, and even the enterprises that want to grow. Many of the activities must be very short and possibly repeated over time. Students from technical schools go to enter the companies, and they just need maybe a 2 months internship that they are able to work. So, there must be a way to channel the training capabilities. We don't need to certify the paths, we need to certify the actual capabilities acquired at the end. So a smart guy who has worked for 5 years needs to be certified for the skills acquired, for the expertise gained, as he was or she was a graduate, because they have the experience. You certify the skills, you don't certify the education title. So they could be even better than the son of a lawyer. So when you have the qualification title, that is good, but that is not enough. So there is a problem to create an educational system available for millions of people. It's not about the Ministry of Education. It is something that should come from private subjects. We cannot do that through regional funded courses. And the third point, I'm looking forward, the national healthcare system. We've talked a lot about healthcare. It's something cultural. The things that we mentioned here today have to do with this. We need to change the culture of the country. I'll be more detailed. We love the universalistic and solidarity system that we have. But I'm working on the 20th report on the Italian hospital system. now, and I am working on the hospital balance sheets, the financial statements. After writing such a report, I know that it's not just enough having the resources. You need to have organizational planning, you need to be a structure. I know that it's very difficult to implement, but I just think that we need to pass a phase in which, and I just mentioned 3 examples, we need alliances with private subjects, strictly private subjects, not accredited subjects. We already know that the accredited companies, clinics, and companies are part of the national system. I'm talking about strictly private subjects. Logistics. Everything that has to do with logistics should no more pass through the hands of physicians and nurses. So, I live in Rome. Imagine nurses sending you certificates and documents to other offices somewhere else. They don't mention that it's 7 steps. So you need to take your papers to 7 different offices. And so logistics should be in the hands of private companies that work in logistics. I collaborate with companies with a company that administered the vaccines in the Lazio region. I was in Trento, and I read that Lazio was ranked first in the distribution of vaccines. Everyone was ready. The system was so efficient because it was a company from Trento, from the north of Italy. So Rome has the desks of the health authorities because there are companies, external companies that work as counters, as desks for the health authority, because the health authority doesn't want to deal with the public any longer. So you need to work on something else. Secondly, all the ICT sector, we're not talking about 25,000 different types of applications. You need large, all-encompassing agreements. ICT, it belongs to those who are able to do that, not hospitals. So you need a private company again. Thirdly, maintenance. I'm looking at him because he built a company on that. The ordinary, extraordinary company of the maintenance of the equipment is essential, because I see in the hospitals, I see rooms locked with the equipment inside that is not used. So when a piece is broken, you cannot find the spare parts, and the equipment remains stopped for months and months. So we need companies to do maintenance. So we need to do an effort in the innovation of startups, the presence of a big that is well consolidated, well established. We need to create the culture. We need to convince people that this is something to be done like this. You don't do this like by hiring 20,000 nurses. Can you imagine 20,000 nurses going around different places, delivering punctually the things? This is something impossible. This thing is not trivial. You need to think how to lead these things to the best. So I just mentioned 3 examples. So the last maybe is the most challenging, because you need to change the culture. There is not third way. There will be a gradual deterioration of the performance of the services. You will have to go 50 kilometers away to find something. Can you imagine an old person? And when you have to book a service, you have a broken leg, you have to change 7 different offices. This is impossible. So you have to insert those things in the policies. You have to help change a piece of national and local culture, productive culture. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Delay ha fatto una sorta di sintesi conclusiva, quindi non dovremmo
Delay
aggiungere altro, ma io devo
has
fare
shown
il mio
his
compitino
conclusion. We
conclusivo. Io
shouldn't be adding
pregherei
anything, but
se
I need
di
to
venire
fulfill my
comunque Diego
role.
Bravo
So
qui, perché le
please,
parole finali credo no,
I have to ask
Diego?
Diego Bravo to
Grazie
come to
infinite a
the
loro.
podium.
E allora io ci
Thank you,
provo.
everybody.
Anche se
I'll give it a
far la
try.
sintesi di super
I
sintesi
know
non è
that
assolutamente facile, ma
making an overview
soltanto
of
un
the
brevissimo
overview is no
elenco
simple
di
task,
cose
but I will
che
try to
mi hanno
list
colpito
some things
essendo veramente
that have
esterno
struck me in
a
these
questi
2
argomenti.
days
Siamo partiti
as I'm an
all'inizio
outsider.
da questa nuova
We
iniziativa
started at the
dell'OGS
beginning
che ha
from
raggiunto un
this
grande
new
risultato all'interno
initiative
del
carried on by
PNRR
OGS that has
direi
reached a
che,
great result within
che
the
poi si traduce in bisogno
recovery
di
plan,
spazio
and that
ulteriore per le
translates
ricerche
itself into
insieme
a
ad altre
need
collaborazioni,
of
ma
spaces
quello
for
che ha detto
research
Brava
and other
prima
cooperation
è non sarete
activities.
soli.
But
Ecco, questo è
as
l'aspetto molto
Braver said
importante
before,
che viene
you
fuori un
won't
po'
be.
da tutto
This is a very
da
important
tutto il
aspect
convegno,
that
quindi
emerged from
collaborazione
these 2
tra i
days
vari
of
enti, che
conference,
una volta non era così,
cooperation
c'era più
among different
gelosia
bodies.
forse che altro,
Once
invece adesso hanno imparato
it
a
didn't function
collaborare. Io
like
darei
that,
anche una
there
parola
was
in più,
jealousy,
oltre che collaborazione, quasi
whereas today
solidarietà
we've
tra i vari
learned
enti per
to
raggiungere
cooperate and to show
questi
solidarity
risultati. Abbiamo
among
visto
different
poi
bodies and
l'importanza
institutions.
del far rete, che ne fa anche
Then we
riferimento
saw the
anche la
importance of
digitalizzazione,
building
per
networks
riuscire a migliorare,
to improve
oltre che l'innovazione, non soltanto l'innovazione, ma anche i
not
tempi e
only
i costi che si
innovation,
traducono
but
in migliori
also
servizi per
cost
la
and the
popolazione, per la
time
cittadinanza. E credo che
needed to go
migliorare
on the
tempi
market.
e costi e
Improving
migliorare e
time to market
aumentare i
and
servizi
costs
sia veramente un
to
aspetto
increase
chiave
and improve services is a key aspect
della nostra società.
of our society,
Abbiamo visto poi
I
che
guess.
dal biotech della
We've also
salute si è
seen
anche
that
sconfinato
from
giustamente
healthcare biotech,
nell'analisi del problema
we moved
dell'energia, oltre a, se ho
towards
ben
the
capito, anche
problem of
attendersi a quello che
energy
avviene negli Stati Uniti, della cooperazione necessaria nella creazione di
and the
nuovi
cooperation
medicinali, la
needed
rapidità e
to
la
create new
riduzione dei
drugs, the
costi per
rapidity that is
raggiungere questi
needed, and the
obiettivi. Questo è
reduction of
stato molto
costs
molto
to
importante. Per
reach these
quanto riguarda
objectives.
la
As far as I've
finanza,
understood what is happening in the US as well.
abbiamo visto
As for
come ci sia
finance,
bisogno anche di capacità di dialogare tra
we've
finanza e
seen the
impresa,
need
soprattutto l'impresa innovativa,
of
e
a
dare anche alla
dialogue
finanza
capacity
le
between
capacità di
finance
scout. Abbiamo
and
visto quasi
enterprises.
chi
We need
ha
to
detto,
give
no, quasi
finance
delle guide
scouting
per arrivare
capabilities.
all'obiettivo. Non
There
sono
should be
necessariamente territori
guides leading
sconosciuti,
us
ma per
towards
raggiungere
the aim. No
queste,
unexplored
questi
territories, of
obiettivi,
course, but we need to
per,
keep this in mind
e
to
sottolineando
reach the
poi che in
objectives that
Italia ha grandi potenzialità, ma
we need
fatica
to
poi queste
underline that
potenzialità
Italy
della
has a
ricerca
huge
e
potential,
dell'innovazione a
but
tradursi in
struggles
mercato, che è poi quello
to
che
translate
consegue di
this
risolvere da
potential
tanto
into
tempo. E
marketable
quindi
services or
anche qui
products.
giunture, io chiamerei
So
intersezioni,
junctions,
ma
once more
altrettanto importanti.
intersections, so
Poi
to say, that
abbiamo visto
are
anche l'aspetto
really important.
concreto della sanità, che deve
We've also
svilupparsi
seen
sul territorio
hands-on examples
per
of
essere più
healthcare
vicino ai
systems
pazienti. È un aspetto molto
operating
importante che
on the
secondo me,
territory
che
to
io ho
be
colto,
closer
che
to
mi è sembrato
patients.
molto
And a very
interessante, è la
important aspect,
qualità
in
dei
my
dati
opinion,
che devono
was also
essere
the quality
normalizzati, nel
of
senso che possano
data and data
dialogare
sets
gli
that
uni
ought to
con gli
be
altri, che possano essere anche poi
standardized so that they can dialogue
utilizzati
with
e
each
non
other
restare fine
and
a se
be
stessi all'interno
used and not be
della
left to
propria nicchia.
themselves in their
Abbiamo visto
niche.
poi come la regione, in modo inaspettato forse,
We've
ma in realtà
seen
non dobbiamo più meravigliarci, abbia fatto un grosso
how
salto
the
nella
region
capacità di attrarre
unexpectedly has made a giant
investimenti,
leap forward in attracting investments.
e questa nuova attenzione nei confronti di un territorio apparentemente
And the new
marginale, ma se poi
attention
vedete la carta
devoted to
dell'Europa
a
vedete che non sono per
marginal
niente
territory.
marginali.
But if you look at the map of
Siamo
Europe, you
marginali
can see
rispetto
we're
al
not
terreno d'Italia.
at all marginal.
E quindi però anche questa capacità su cui ci si sta muovendo, ma che bisogna
This
migliorare e anche
capacity
acquisire,
that we
di
need to
fare
improve and to
sintesi
acquire
della complessità
to
dentro la quale ci
make a
si
summary
muove.
of
Poi
the
ve là è
complexity
inutile che
where
lo
we
riassuma
operate
perché
is really
è stato
important.
particolarmente ricco
No need
nella
to
sua
summarize
riflessione molto ampia, ma il messaggio che ha
the
dato,
last
e che
speech, but
credo
the key
a
message
Diego Bravar non sfugga, è quella di
we
concettualizzare
got
il
was to
BIC, finalizzare il
conceptualize
BIC alla
BIC
gestione delle
and to
giunzioni o
finalize
intersezioni,
BIC
come
to
li
manage
vogliamo chiamare, cioè c'è questa
junctions or
capacità di
intersections,
mettere e far
as we like to
dialogare
call them,
tutti questi sistemi, poi
and to
ovviamente
bring
vanno
into dialogue
concretamente. Ho
all the
lasciato alla
systems.
fine quello che è l'aspetto che mi sta più a cuore, che è
I
quello
left at the
dell'educazione
aspect
e che ritengo sia poi
most
alla
fond of,
base
that
di
is
tutto quello che poi si
education
può fare
and
in un
training.
percorso
That's
con
the
state
basis of
critiche
everything
severissime
you can do
fatte
in
là
spite
da
of the
questo dibattito.
harsh
Ci
criticism
posso
we
anche
received on the topic.
la centralità degli ITS
The
che io
centrality
ho
of
imparato a
ETS,
conoscere, uno particolare ma piuttosto
which
importante,
I've
che è
learned to
l'Accademia Navale
know,
che
for
si è
example, the
sviluppata
Naval
qui a
Academy
Trieste, che è
as-
interessantissima e affascinante
that has
nella
developed in
sua,
Trieste, which is a very
nel suo sviluppo,
fascinating experience.
e ancora una volta la capacità di dialogare l'accademia
And
con
once more,
l'impresa. Però,
the capacity to
ultimissima
bring into
cosa che
dialogue universities
voglio
and
così
enterprises.
riproporre
One very
una
last thing I
di
want to
questa
say
super sintesi.
again.
L'incertezza, intersezioni, dialogo,
Uncertainty,
comprensione,
intersections, dialogue,
concettualizzazione,
comprehension,
se vi permettete,
conceptualization,
collaborazione e solidarietà,
cooperation,
interdisciplinarietà
solidarity,
e complessità ancora una
transversality,
volta. Voi sapete,
interdisciplinarity,
tutti questi
complexity.
concetti così importanti, così
You know,
pesanti,
all these
dove si
very
ritrovano tutti
important
quanti
and heavy
insieme,
concepts, do you know
immagino che
where
non vi
we can
venga in
find them
mente,
all
ma si
together?
ritrovano nella filosofia.
I don't know
Io
if it
so
comes to your
che
mind, but it's
Diego Bravar
philosophy
ha un
I am
sussulto
talking about.
quando la
I know
nomino,
that Diego
ne
Brother
parliamo qualche
worries
volta,
about
però se
me talking about
inserissimo
philosophy,
qualche
but
frammento,
if
non
we were to put some
autogiustificante, come diceva
fragments
prima dell'AI, ma
of philosophy
realmente
in what we do,
vivificante per la comprensione,
some
gestione
reviving
della complessità
fragments
e
to
del dialogo delle
understand and
intersezioni,
manage the
io credo che se si
complexity and
dessero
dialogue
anche
on
frammenti di questi
intersections.
strumenti, ecco,
I
ci
believe
potrebbe
that
essere
if we
nel
were to
ITS,
use
magari
fragments of
mezz'oretta in
these
tutta settimana si
instruments, then
potrebbe
we would
anche
have much
incidere.
more
Quindi
results. Just
la
think
mia
of it
proposta
in
provocatoria in
ETS.
questo bellissimo
Also,
percorso
half
che
an hour a
speriamo,
week.
ho
My
notato che anche la politica
proposal, I am
più
provoking,
recita
I
mercante di
know.
tenta,
My
anche se
proposal is this
dovrebbe
one.
farlo sempre. Questa mia provocazione, metteteci dentro anche questo frammento provocatorio di filosofia e anche, se
Just
volete,
bring
di
with you
sport,
this
perché
fragment
solo dallo
of
sport o
philosophy
quasi solo dallo
and
sport,
sports
anche
too,
nella scienza,
because
si ha il
also
controllo dei
in
risultati e
sciences,
che
it is
nello
only
sport
through
i risultati
sports that you
sono
can
quelli, si
control the
controllano e
results
dopo
you want
si
to obtain. Because
migliora
in sports, you
partendo dai
control
risultati
the
che si sono
results
ottenuti.
and then you
Diego
can
Bravar,
improve
credo che la parola
basing
sia a te.
on the
Grazie.
results obtained.
Sì,
Diego
Franco, io
Bravar, you have the
inviterei
floor.
qui gli organizzatori e quindi Camera di
First of all, I would
Commercio,
like to invite here the
Confindustria,
organizing
Bio
committee,
for Dream,
Confcommercio,
le
Confindustria, Bio
sue
for Dreams,
espressioni.
and its two different expressions.
Ecco,
Vi lascio
prego.
il posto naturalmente.
Grazie, grazie. E così chiudiamo
Thank you.
così faccio un
So
discorso
we
come premessa,
will
poi
conclude.
consideriamo gli altri. Prego.
Please have a seat.
Non facciamo, mettiamoci una sedia vicino se qualche altra, sì, stiamo tutti assieme e così finiamo. Barbara, c'è una sedia qua? Sì, bene.
Please add more chairs if we need them.
Allora, poi vi do la parola, vuol dire faccio proprio la sintesi delle sintesi, perché siamo stanchi e dobbiamo chiudere.
One more summary of summaries. My impressions. My impression
le ditte sono più
is
contente. Le ditte che abbiamo
companies
analizzato sono più contente
are
perché sono cresciute.
happier. They are happier because they've grown. Some companies went from a few €100,000 to some million to 10 million, tens million euro, or maybe hundreds of them. This is the first passage. This entrepreneurial system, as I like to call it, is growing. Entrepreneurs have begun to move. They were health entrepreneurs, and then we've added some energy entrepreneurs and some digital ones. It's the first time. Thank you. Thank you, OGS. Thank you because OGS won the tender, the recovery plan tender. So we added energy, digitalization, which are both linked with healthcare. So thank you, OGS, and the private players we've been cooperating with. We've asked all our companies, what kind of lab would you like to have? To have a lift. So the companies are happier because they understand that being together, showing solidarity, but for some moments, they steal engineers or technicians one from each other, but apart from that, well, they were happy. They were happy to be here. Research bodies, research institutions, they show solidarity to this world. ICGB, ICTP, the universities, they've all shown more solidarity than usual. They were more convinced of going towards common goal. What about training? We lacked in this respect. We couldn't arrange everything. Not only did we not include philosophy, but we actually neglected what we did the most the years before. Training on medical physics, training for ICGB, training for ITS, but we couldn't do everything. So training, education and training must be here the next year. We should be doing more. The same applies to politics. This has been the first time that I've seen a regional councillor attending the whole session, policy innovation, attending the whole session, and only at the end said, it was too late, it's really too late, I have to go. But somebody from the political world was here.
Non soddisfazione, di richiesta di collaborazione è stata la finanza.
Finance seemed to me launched a request for cooperation, starting from Generali. The first time Generali came a little easy. I like to invest, but that was it. But finance, with the person in charge of all finance and institutions, private equity, crowdfunding, and all the rest, well, finance said they need places like this one. Banca Generali, for example, Banca Letti, other banks said, we have experts. Well, they also employ sector technicians and experts, or they need to confront with other experts. So next year, together with training, we should do something more for finance. Don't know what yet. We have to think about it in the organizing committee, but we should be doing something more for finance because finance, one last thing, private equity that needs to be funded, that has to be funded in 15 days, well, I come to you because I'd like to have some indications, some instructions, because if I've got money to spend and I want to know where to invest them, which is what Bio for Dreams usually says. These are the macro things I think I have seen over the last few days. Next year, we will have to say what OGS has done on the territory, but what I heard, Ms. Rosolen and a collaborator said, with the recovery plan, we will spend much money on healthcare. So training is even more important and needed because biomedical engineers, a biomedical engineer today says that some jobs are no longer in trend, but biomedical engineers are strongly needed because healthcare brings innovation. So it's an important profile, the profile that is lacking. If we launch a tender for 100 million euro or 80 million only on interconnections in the region Friuli Venezia Giulia, my question is, who's going to do all these things? For sure, private companies, but they are already stealing technicians from each other. Just think if we don't produce any more engineers. This has been a positive addition. We've helped the recovery plan. Last year, Professor Pezzini said, think of the National Recovery Plan because it will enter in all your activities, even though you don't know it yet. Well, we've started to talk about, and hopefully next year we will do it even more. So it's been a positive year, in my opinion. Some things were still lacking, as usual, but what Franco said, I insist once more, let's face the next event. Let's prepare for the next event with more humility. I think this message was really important. Now the floor goes to Aries, Chamber of Commerce.
Good evening. I think that this event has been very successful, possibly the most successful after the pandemic, both for the teams and the participation that has been considerable online. I'd like to thank everyone because the commitment was really huge. I like to thank all the members of the organizing committee, and as a Chamber of Commerce, we commit ourselves to this event, and we put at the disposal of this initiative our skills and capabilities, especially in terms of internationalization, with the involvement of all of our contacts and scientific bodies and enterprises of the Alpe Adria area and in the Balkans. And the participation should even be increased further to create all the connections and the collaboration that are fundamental in this geographical area. Then we can also give our assistance in terms of guidance and training, because the Chamber of Commerce is also competent in the training of students and the work and study paths, programs. So you only have 3 minutes. So we need to fill the gaps between the offer and the demand in the fields that we mentioned today. So we'll see each other in 2023, and I wish you the best. I wish you good luck for the future, for the coming months. I just wanted to spend 30 seconds for a message. We have very complex challenges ahead, but here rather than just looking at the opportunities, I'd like to focus the attention, to draw the attention on the duty and the responsibilities that we have on the Friuli Venezia Giulia has. It is the most advanced in terms of innovation. It has the facilities, it has the research bodies, it has the most important community, scientific community at national level. So I think it's fundamental that all the resources, all the stakeholders will meet here next year with operational programs so that the region can become a benchmark in this path, in this kind of path. So, Confindustria representative, I would like to make a reference to what Bosco just said. I believe that these setting small tasks for the next year will make us build an even more solid path, and as Confindustria we will have to bring this event that has been extremely successful given the time that we had to organize it, to disseminate the event and even bring even more companies to participate at the national level and international level. So to tackle all these subjects, biotech, ICT, and energy, but also with cooperation between the private and state-run entities, urban center and BIC. I also believe that what happened here has been extremely interesting for the urban center because it's been junction, connection, union, overlapping of something that makes it possible to strengthen, to reinforce the actors from territory. And next year, we could attract the new generations and on the other hand, even the companies, because this is a meeting point to plan future developments. I thank you for choosing Urban Center as your venue. This is the incubator for innovation. So I hope that we will be here in September 23, and we are confident that the results presented this year will also be told and reported next year. So I have two microphones. So very briefly, I just want to make a reference to the introduction of this event, the intentions of the organizing committee. So the intentions were to bring the reality of our 50 companies to the audience. I collected 50 business cards at the international level, and it was a success. And the second point was to understand better the subject of the startups that are hosted upstairs. So this was a success as well. Just last remark to Franco. In the organizing committee, we will involve ITS Foundation, and we will include some philosophy in our discussion because we need our students to be trained in philosophy as well. So lastly, I invite the over 400 people who listen to us online, whom I thank. So we reached 400 viewers from so many countries. Next year, please come back. We will become even more international. Trieste next event is becoming European. Please come here because this event needs to become important at the Alpe Adria level. So I invite everyone to come here next year, and we'll try to be even more with some parallel session. Thank you so much for your attention.